Hey there, everybody. My name is Jason Gold. I am back with another episode of Investor Insights. In today's episode, we're going to be talking about why consistency is so important. I like to say that consistency is king when telling your story to investors. You should never change your story unless the business actually demands that. You should do your best to figure out what that story is, tell people that story, and then tell them the same story over and over again. Let's talk about why. I had a client who each quarter he would tell his IR team to make him a new deck. Each quarter had a different story. One quarter they were focused on this market. Another quarter they were focused on that market. Another quarter this product was going to be great, and another quarter that product was going to be great. And in the end, the multiple really suffered. My advice to them was figure out what your story is and tell that story until you are so sick of telling it that you want to jump off a bridge. But that means your story is getting through to investors. Don't change the story. So why is it that consistency is so important? Well, there's really two reasons. Number one is investors are focused on a million things. Remember, you spend all day, every day, focused on just your company. Investors, on the other hand, might spend 60 to 90 minutes a quarter focused on your company, and they might cover 300 to 500 different names. And so while they'll review their notes before getting on a call with you, and they'll look at the sell side notes while they're preparing for this quarter's earnings, but they need to be reminded about what your story is. And if your story is consistently changing, then they don't really understand what's going on. You need to hammer home the 1, 2, and 3 about your story. And each quarter, update them on the progress towards achieving 1, 2, and 3. They need to hear that from you to keep you straight in their head in the broad mosaic of all the different companies and themes that they're following. The second reason is a bit more nuanced, and it applies especially to the investors that know you really well. See, let's say they've known you for some time and they've heard your story. And they've gotten used to that story, and they've told themselves that story, they've told their boss that story, they've told their friends that story, and everybody's bought into that story. And then you get on an earnings call and you tell a different story. The only interpretation that they could possibly have is that the story that you were telling before isn't working, or that there's something that you need to do to get everyone else's attention because whatever you were telling them before was falling on deaf ears. That makes investors very nervous. They want to hear that the story you told them before is the same story that's working now and the same story that's working today, and that will be the same story that's working tomorrow and in the future, so that they can continue to tell themselves that story and tell their boss that story and tell their friends that story. Because remember, you spend all day, every day on it. The best analyst is spending a little bit more time than everybody else that they're telling the story to. So the whole thing needs to regularly fit together. If you change it, they start to get nervous. And when they get nervous, they run the other way. You might wonder, why is my stock going down? One of the reasons could be you changed your story. And one of the key things I learned as a very young investor was that if there's a change in thesis, you have to exit the position so that you have a clean head and you can start again. My boss used to say that to me all the time. Jason, you were pitching me on this story. Now the story is slightly different. You are no longer objective, Jason. You are subjective. You are emotionally involved in this. We're going to sell the whole position. You're going to take 30 days to clear your head, and then you can come back and maybe you want to pitch the story again with this new theme. But if the old theme wasn't working and now there's a new one, we have to get out. And I'm sure we were not alone in being the only fund that thought about things that way. So here's what you need to do. You want to lay out your story. Tell them what it is you do. Tell them what moat you have. Tell them why now is a really interesting time to be paying attention. Lay out where you're taking this company and what your strategic priorities are. And then every 90 days, repeat that same thing. But the update should be, in the last quarter, here's what we have done towards the achievement of our strategic priorities. This quarter is a demonstration of our marching on the path towards our medium-term goals of X, Y, and Z, and our long-term goals of P, D, and Q. It should be literally the same thing each quarter. In that way, you will be providing consistency quarter to quarter to quarter about who you are, why you exist, what your mode is, and where you're going. The only difference each quarter will be what are the incremental updates that you have provided since 90 days ago on your ability to achieve those strategic priorities. I also suggest not changing your metrics. You should figure out within your story, what are the metrics that we need to be delivering? What are those KPIs, whether it's ARR, subscription revenue, units, customers, it doesn't matter. Whatever is specific to your story, figure out what that is and give them those metrics on a repeatable basis. Don't give customers one quarter and not another quarter. Don't give customers minus small, medium business customers one quarter and then give them the next quarter. Don't be changing those metrics unless there's a real reason to do it. And if you have to change those metrics, give customers or give investors at least 1 to 2 quarters advance notice that you'll be changing a metric. They want to be able to rely on your metrics quarter in and quarter out to help prove the story is working. Now, to be clear, not all metrics have to be given every quarter. You can have one metric that's given only annually, other metrics that are given semi-annually, and yet other metrics that are given quarterly. You can decide what those are, but once you decide, communicate the consistency with which you will be giving those metrics and then stick to it and don't change that consistency and don't change what those metrics are. If you do change a metric or if you do worse, take one away, people will see that as a sign that whatever metric you were giving them isn't telling the story that you want, and they will become skeptical. Skeptical would be the best outcome. Worst case scenario, they'll start shooting against you and they will sell the stock hard and fast because they will decide the only reason you didn't give them that metric was that it had bad information and didn't tell the story the way you wanted to. Know that investors are paid to protect their clients' money, and if something smells just a little bit off, they're going to run. So in summary, figure out what your story is and stick to it. Tell the same story. Give them the same metrics, quarter in, quarter out, intra-quarter at companies, conferences, on the quarter for your earnings, at your analyst day. Tell that story and only incrementally update people on the progress you're making towards achieving those goals. That's it for now. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of Investor Insights. My name is Jason Gold. I look forward to seeing you again here next time.